Ah, the weather's so good, I could just get lost in my thoughts. Actually, I don't have a brain, so I don't know where my thoughts are. How am I thinking about this? Welcome back to Creatures, Caverns, and Crafting. In front of me today, I have some supplies. First of all, we have some aluminum foil, some cardboard, we have some sand and some rocks here that we'll be using for aggregate, and of course some spackling. I'm going to use a razor knife to cut the cardboard, of course, and a little bit of hot glue. This build is going to be inspired by the Chronicles of Riddick. There's a sun planet called Crematoria. We're going to try to copy those jagged rock looks for our wasteland. So let's get started. So this project is going to be very easy. What we're going to do is cut some cardboard for our base. We're going to take some aluminum foil and we're going to start forming this into long points like so. We're going to use a little bit of hot glue to adhere that to the cardboard base. And we're also going to take extra pieces of foam. We're going to start to just form those into other pieces to stick onto the foil and the base. Here I'm just applying some hot glue. I'm going to put this piece on, and you want to allow this some time to cool so it creates a good bond. If you're working with this and still hot, you'll see it kind of shift around a little bit. The cool thing about working with the aluminum foil is you can kind of adjust those points to the direction that you want, even when they're fastened down. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to strengthen the aluminum foil. To do this, I'm taking the hot glue and I'm just going over the aluminum foil. You can use the heat of the tip to kind of form that to the aluminum foil so you don't have those long strands. But don't worry if you get that. We're going to go over it with some spackling here in a little bit. It'll cover that up for you. Here's some rock formations that I made. These took me no more than an hour to make. I'd probably say 45 minutes at most. You want to go for some different looks. Notice how everything's sturdy. I did fill in the gaps or the corrugation of the cardboard with that hot glue. Everything is very strong here. We're going to use a lighter and just get rid of any of those hot glue wisps that might be left on there. You want to try to go over this. Be careful, you don't want to burn the aluminum foil. You don't want to catch this thing on fire. You're just going to go over it very fast, getting rid of those wisps. Now, I want to show you something else, guys. We're going to use some vinyl spackling, and we're going to go over this. We're also going to mix a little bit of rock into our spackling. For this, I'll probably use the sand because it's going to mix a little bit easier. To fill in any of the other gaps, you could also use a Vallejo earth texture paint here. Now, you don't have to have this. It's just really good if you do. Here I am. I'm applying the spackling onto the foil. You may need to use a little bit of water just to kind of smooth this out. I did kind of put a glob on here, but you can just work this down. Of course, we're also going to add some sand to this mixture. Don't worry about it. You can apply it directly to the paste. You don't have to mix the two together. I just put it on there and just kind of brushed it in with a little bit of water, and it mixed just fine for me. And here's a picture of all of the rocks once the spackling has dried. I think we've got a really cool looking rock formation. And now for a quick break to play with doggos. So for the next step, you may see some cracking when the spackling dries. You can use this earth texture to kind of fill those gaps in. Now if you don't have this, don't worry about buying it. You can simply just cover it with using some glue or just add some more spackling to it. Now we're going to move on to painting, and I'm using an airbrush for this application. I'm using a leather brown, and I'm just thinning it using some acrylic thinners. Guys, as I always say, if you don't have an airbrush, don't worry about it. You can use a regular brush, just thin your paints, maybe put on 1 to 2 coats. Now I'm just highlighting this using a burnt umber. I'm using a regular craft paint, again, just thinning the paint out so it flows really well through my air gun. Again, you can do this same step with your brush. Now we're going to do a little bit more highlighting using a raw sienna. And now we're going to hit this with some orange. This is a transparent orange specifically made for airbrush. And I'm just hitting the tips and corners. Think about where the sun would hit the most on a rock. So for my initial dry brushing, I'm going to use a Screaming Skull. I'm going to use this makeup applicator. It's a nice soft brush. We're going to wipe off the excess on a napkin, and I'm just using downward motions to get this onto the rock. Don't worry if you don't get everything covered. You don't want to grind this in. And keep in mind, we're going to be putting some more paint on this. We may even go over it with a polyacrylic, so you may lose a little bit of those highlights. We can always go back and add more. So as an option, if you're going for more of a Mars/Red Planet look, you can get this by applying some red ink. Just thin it with an acrylic thinner or water and just lightly spray it on there till you get the desired effect. I went with more of a wasteland. I did add a little bit of red to it and it wasn't working with what I wanted, so it's optional. Now to protect my work, I'm going to use some Minwax polyacrylic varnish. This is a water-based varnish, so it's really easy to work with and clean up. If you don't have this, you could use glue. Now this is going to dry glossy. Don't worry, we're going to hit this with some Tetra coat and that'll take that shine away. We want to make sure this doesn't pull, so make sure that we're just spreading it evenly all over the surface. So next I'm going to apply some pigments. For this I used a natural and burnt sienna. We're just going to dust that all over the project. Now there are adhesive sprays that will help this stick. I kind of like to put it on while the Tetra coat is a little wet. Not soaking, but still kind of wet. And that's going to help it stick. But just easily pick it up, shake off the excess, and you should be good. To finish our project off, we're just going to simply add some flocking. For this I used rocks and some glue. And now let's see what it looks like on the table.
The war brought destruction to everything we had. It changed you.
Don't look at me.
But it didn't change you. You were always there, even though we couldn't talk to you, even though you sprouted new limbs and your face changed. You never changed. You kept us safe when the raiders came. You kept us fed when we were hungry. You knew when glowstorms came hours before. Sickness came and took you. Some may say you are already gone. We miss you and we love you.
Hey guys, that's a wrap for this week. Greatly appreciate you tuning in as always. The music at the end was by Ross Bugden. I'm going to put a link to his YouTube channel. Really awesome stuff, guys. Very inspirational. The voice work was by the lovely Olivia at We Are One, You Are Two. I'll also post her link down at the bottom as well. Guys, as we go into the weekend, please be safe. Take care. We look forward to having you back, and we're going to keep pumping these shows out for you. Take care. Bye.